Hello everyone, today I am here to share with you all of the books I read in July. So in total I read 10 books, which is great. I'm happy with it. And yeah, if you don't know my wrap-ups, I start with my least favorite book that I read that month, working up to my favorite. I link all the reviews I've done down below throughout the month, even though I think I've only done one. A lot of these books I've read are not coming out till like September and October, so I'm sorry, you guys know I'm reading in advance, things like that, but let's just go ahead and get into it because 10 books, a lot to talk about. First book I want to talk about is a adult thriller, and that is The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. This is her latest release. I think I've read 3 or 4 books by this author, and this one was okay. I think it comes out in September, and honestly I don't remember much about it. And so it follows multiple perspectives because that's kind of how Lisa Jewell books are. It starts off in one timeline with this young girl that has a kid, and her and her boyfriend go missing one night and nobody knows where they're at. Her mother's desperately trying to find them, and we flash forward to a couple years later. They're still missing, but the case is kind of opened up, and it was okay. Her books are not super thrilling as far as I think it's mostly domestic thriller. Is that the right word? I think that's the right word. They're okay. I give it a 3.5. It was a okay thriller. It wasn't one of my favorites. It was just like kind of like a baseline one. In fact, a lot of my books I read this month are 3.5s, which isn't bad at all. I don't think so. That's a pretty standard rating for me. Moving on. My next 3.5 book is It Started with a Dog by Julia London. This one doesn't come out till September, I believe. I'll put the dates down below. This one was super cute. I say time and time again, if you love dogs, this is a great book to read. It's about these two characters that pretty much meet on like this car share app, like an Uber, Uber pool, whatever you call it, to the airport, and somehow like their phones get jostled and they each take each other's phones and they go on trips, so they have to text each other like, hey, you have my phone, I have your phone. And they start talking, and of course when they finally arrive back in town, they get to exchange phones and they get to know each other more. They both have dogs, and it's just adorable. The guy in the book, forgive me, I do not know a lot of names because ebooks, his family is struggling with their coffee shop, and the girl actually he's interested in is opening up a brand new coffee shop that's going to take their business away across the street. So we kind of have that going on, all while we kind of have these dogs in the background, and it's a super cute book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5. If you just want kind of a cheesy romance book, this is a great book to check out. Next up, I actually have a physical book. Wow. The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffith. This is actually a YA fantasy. Who would have thunk it? But I read it. And this book is very interesting. It's all about witches, but it's got a very seasonal vibe to it. So in this book, we have a character named Clara, who is an ever witch, and in this world of witches, we have each witch is tied to a particular season. If you were an autumn witch, that means that your magic is strongest during the autumn months, September, October, and November, and you have certain magic that pulls into the elements with fall, you know what I'm saying? If you're winter, your magic is the strongest during the winter months. But Clara is an ever witch, and that means that she can like go through the seasons like and have all the magic, and that's like never happened. She's the first in her like generation. There's only been a couple. And so this book also deals so it talks about seasonal witches and things like that, but it also talks a lot about climate change and how kind of regular humans are kind of messing up the climate. Like in this book, like a huge ice storm happens in the middle of summer, which is totally like unheard of and rare, and they have to prevent that. That's their job as witches, to try to help control and help the nature kind of balance out. And it's very interesting. If you're a big fan of seasons, like if you don't know, I'm a very seasonal person. Like that is like my thing. I love changing with the seasons. I love how everything changes with the seasons, just how seasons are in general. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5. It's kind of like the magic's not super duper well explained, but I enjoyed it. It was a standalone book, which I also appreciated because I feel like there's just so many adult fantasy series that I'm just like, because I'm like growing out of the fantasy genre, at least for young adult, that is, and just probably in general, I don't know. But I love how it was a standalone. It was one and done. And I just liked kind of the whole elemental thing with the seasons and how it kind of talked about climate change, and there was a romance in here as well. So I had a good time with it. I think if you just kind of go into it with not super high expectations, I think you'll enjoy it. I gave it a 3.5. It was a solid book. I liked it. Look at that. The next book I have is also a physical book, and I also gave it 3.5. And that is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This one comes out October 21st, and this is a great book to read near Halloween. It's an adult romance that also talks about witches. We're getting to the witchy mood, and I'm here for it because I love them. But this book, we follow a character named Vivian, who at the beginning of this book, her and her boyfriend Reese break up very tumultuously. And she decides, you know, I'm going to get drunk, and you know, she does the one thing witches aren't supposed to do, which is mix vodka and witchcraft. So she does that, and her and her cousin like curse Reese, but they're like, we didn't really do it. But 9 years later, the book picks up. Reese actually has to come home to their town. Their town is called Graves Glen. And he's actually a founding member of this town. And he has to come back in town for the founding day because he has to charge the ley lines, like the magic and stuff. And when he gets there, things start going awry. Like, he dies multiple times. Ghosts start appearing, and this is a town that is magical, but a lot of non-magical folks live there, so they're like, oh man. And Vivian has to be like, oh yeah, I cursed you like 9 years ago, and I guess it's just now coming into fruition. So they have to team up together and stop the curse, and it's super cute. Again, with this one, with the whole witchcraft, it's not really explained that well. It's kind of like a Stars Hollow would have magic in it, and you would just have to roll with it, which I was more okay with doing. I enjoyed it. If you just want kind of a romantic, witchy book set in a small town, fall vibes galore, I would check it out. It's a cute book to read near Halloween. Like, I could see myself, I read it because I don't think I'm going to be able to read it near Halloween because we all know, but I could see myself really loving it near Halloween because it was just kind of like hocus pocus, practical magic with some adult romance. I liked it. It was cute. You just have to kind of just go into it expecting that. A cute, witchy romance read with not a ton of depth. So 3.5. I thought it was cute. My last 3.5 I have, it's Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore. This is her third, I don't know if it's her final book in the series, The League of Extraordinary Women, but this is a historical romance series. It's the only historical romances I've ever read, so, you know, take my things with grains of salt. But, basically, this book, we follow a character named Hattie, who is very well off. She has a family that's very well off, and she's part of the women's suffrage movement because this book takes place like in the late 1800s when women's suffrage was coming to be. And somehow she gets involved with this guy named Lucius, who's kind of not the best guy, but they get caught in a compromising position, which means that they have to marry immediately because that's how it was back then. You either marry or it's not gonna be good for you. And so they get married, much to her dismay. She loathes him, and of course it's got like that whole Beauty and the Beast thing where she learns more about him, that he's like kind of a decent guy, and they maybe have some feelings and fall in love. And it's a cute romance read. With historical, is it the best historical romance book I've ever read? I don't know. I'm not very historical romance savvy at all. There are so many other booktubers out there that read so many more historical romances, so probably listen to them more. But I'd say if you're interested in historical romance and you're looking for a good jumping off point, this series is a great one to do. They were easy to read. I like the romance a lot, and I like the characters a lot, so 3.5 out of 5 for me. And the rest of the books I have are 4 stars. First up being If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This is a adult romance Cinderella retelling. This one follows a character named Cindy, who is a plus-size woman, and somehow through a slew of events, she gets involved in a show called Before Midnight, aka The Bachelor. We've all read those books before. And so she's a contestant with like so many other women trying to win Henry's heart. But she's actually met Henry before. They met on the plane ride to California. They didn't know each other. She didn't know he was the next bachelor. He didn't know that she was going to be a contestant. And they flirted, but they never like exchanged numbers. So she's like, oh wow, this is going to be like real deal for me. Like I really do have feelings for this guy. That's not just a stepping stone for my career, because she wants to be a fashion designer. So that's what the whole book is about. I'd say if you're a big fan of reality dating, like books and shows, this is a great book to read, coming from someone who does not watch any reality dating shows. I don't like The Bachelor. I don't like The Bachelorette. I only really watch a couple reality shows, and they're old. I don't keep up to date with them, but I still say if you're not a fan of them, this is just very interesting to get into the kind of dynamics with it of filming, how they pick out people, you know, how they eliminate people, things like that. And I also loved how it was a Cinderella retelling, and we have the stepmother and stepsisters who are usually, you know, just horrible people because that's how they were in Cinderella. But in this book, they're actually very kind and they care about Cindy and they love her and they want what's best for her. So I was like, that is a breath of fresh air. So I enjoyed it. So a 4 out of 5. I believe this is Julie Murphy's first foray into adult romance, and I think she did pretty good. Next up is All the Feels by Olivia Dade. This is a companion sequel novel to her book Spoiler Alert, which was released last year. And I have to say, I definitely like Spoiler Alert more. So this one follows a character named Alex, who is on the show God of the Gates. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, but like with Roman gods, Greek gods, things like that. And he's been getting a lot of bad press lately. Like, things have been happening. So the showrunners kind of decide to hire him like a nanny, like somebody to watch over him that makes sure that he does not get into any more trouble while the show's going on. And so in enters Lauren, who is actually like, this is not her job at all, but she knows the cousins are showrunner and she needs some money. So she has to watch over Alex. And of course they form a relationship. There's also a heavy base of fan fiction in this book because that's what kind of the whole book series follows around with fan fiction, because Alex starts to read it and he starts to write it himself. And of course feelings start emerging, and that's kind of the book. I enjoyed it, but like I said, not nearly as much as Spoiler Alert. Like, if I had to rethink ratings, I would probably put Spoiler Alert at like 4.5 and maybe this one at 3.75. It was like, it just took very long for the romance to get there, and I just wanted more of it, but that's just me. I think they're super cute books. I love the plus size representation always in this book, in this series I should say, but they're cute. I'm not mad that I read it at all. Next up is Well Matched by Jen DeLuca. This is the third and final book in her Well Met series, I guess you could say. So in this book, we follow a character named April, who is the sister in her first book, right here, Well Met. So in Well Met, we followed Emily, and Emily had to move back like to where her sister lives, April, in this small town to help with her recovery of a car accident, things like that. And she gets involved with her Renaissance fair and things like that. So like I said, in this book, we follow April, her older sister, and she's 40. Her daughter, Caitlin, is about to graduate high school this year, and she's ready to move on. She's ready to move on from the small town to finally, you know, do something for herself, because she's been a single mom all her life, and it's time for her to, like, you know, spread her wings. To get her house ready for the market, but of course, with that, you have to like paint, replace floors. It's no fun trying to sell a house. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I've done it and I loathe it. I dread the day I have to do it again. But basically she invites Mitch, who is kind of like the town's playboy. He also like is the high school gym coach, and he's on the Renaissance fair, and somehow they strike up a bargain to where he needs a fake girlfriend for a family event because he's in his 30s and everyone's like, when are you gonna settle down? And he's like, I don't know. So he's like, hey, pretend to be my girlfriend for the weekend and I'll like paint your house, do your floors, all that stuff. And I'm like, sold. She's like sold, but I would be too. But basically that happens, and of course relationship happens and feelings emerge, and it's kind of an age gap romance, but not really, because she's 40, he's in his 30s. But I guess what makes it kind of tricky is the fact that she has like a senior daughter that's about to graduate high school that he teaches at. But I really enjoyed it. I finally am very happy that she got her own book. Finally that Mitch was really involved, because he's been kind of in all the books as well, and I liked it. It's much better than the second one. The second one, I don't know if I've read a decent review on that. The second book was just horrible. In fact, I would say go ahead and skip it. That's how much I don't like it. So I would say read Well Met and then just go right to Well Matched. Don't even, what's the second one called? Well Played? I didn't enjoy it. It was like catfishing. It just, put a bad taste in my mouth. But the third book makes up for it. So in case you read the second book, you're like, why? Why would I want to continue on the series? Trust me, do it. Well Matched is really good. I liked it. But Well Met is definitely my favorite book in the series thus far. The last two books are my favorite of the month. They're both like 4.5 out of 5. First one is Finley Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosmano. This is an adult mystery thriller that's very satire-y, I shall say. So in this book, we follow a character named Finley, who is a author. She writes a lot of kind of, dare I say, erotic mysteries, and she is also a single mom of 2 because her husband cheated on her and he's a jerk. And so basically at the beginning of this book, she's struggling both financially, mentally, all the things. And so she has to meet her literary agent at Panera because she's like, you owe me some pages for your next book. Like, let's get on this. And of course, Finley doesn't have anything. So they're at the table, they're talking. Finley's like telling her like her idea for her book, like of like, you know, because it's like a mystery thriller, some murder and stuff. And somebody overhears her and thinks that she is a contract killer. So like she leaves her card on the table like, hey, here's the name of this guy, here's the amount of money I'm gonna give you, like, get it done. And so she's like, what? But then she's like, money that I really need to like help out with my children and to get my ex-husband off my back. So she's considering it. And it's just a really wild book. You really, with this book again, you have to suspend your disbelief. Like a lot of the stuff happened in this book. I'm like, there is no way that would have happened. But it was fun. I had a good time. If you want a mystery thriller that's very light on it, but very funny and satire-y, I would recommend checking this out. It's going to be a series. I will definitely continue on with the series, but I love the character Finley and how honest and realistic she was and how hard it was to be a mom, because I could totally understand that. But also while she's trying to deal with like somebody thinking that she's a contract killer, you know, little stuff happens every day. It doesn't, but it was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. Could definitely see why it's getting so much hype here on BookTube. So 4.5 out of 5 easily. And the last book is a historical book, and that is The Kitchen Front by Jennifer Ryan. This is a book that takes place in England during World War II when rations are really heavy. And so when that happened, you had rations on food. Like you could only have like 3 tablespoons of butter every week for one adult, and just it was very heavily rationed because of the war. So in this book we follow 4 different women that are going through this. They each have very different things going on, and they all listen to this radio show called The Kitchen Front that's like designed to help women do the most with their rations. And they decide to have a contest, and whoever wins this contest will be the first woman host of The Kitchen Front. And of course they're all like, this is a big opportunity, I really want it. So it's all about them competing, and they have to cook like an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert, and kind of it goes from there, and they have to go within the rations. And it's a very interesting book, very, very heartwarming, because it's about these women that are very, very different, but all come together. And I just really enjoyed it. I also really enjoyed learning about rations and how tough it was back then. Like when, you know, you didn't have barely anything and you had to like make do. It was tough. So I really enjoyed this. I don't read a ton of historical books. We all know this, but the ones I read, I really end up loving. So I should probably read more. But I'd say like if you're a big fan of The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is my favorite book of all time, and you're looking for something similar, but not something so similar and the fact of like it's going to make you sob like 1,000 tears, this is a great book for you. It's very heartwarming, very uplifting about sisterhood and womanhood and all of those things. So 4.5 out of 5, really enjoyed it. I don't hear anybody talk about it, so definitely check it out. So there you have it. Those are all the books I read in July. I have this last month before baby is coming, and I'm going to try to read as much as I can. And all that I can. Maybe I'll be able to read after they come, and then I'll just be, you know, nothing will change. But I'm just trying to prepare for the worst, because that's just kind of how I am. But either way, I would love to know what books you read this month. Did you read any of the same? Did you enjoy them? Did you not enjoy them? How was your summer reading going? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.